Muy buenas tardes tengan cada uno de ustedes. Desde el Ministerio de Educación y en especial de la Dirección de Formación Inicial Docente, les damos la más cordial bienvenida a la última videoconferencia del tercer ciclo de videoconferencias 2022. Para este evento están convocados los docentes formadores y estudiantes del programa de estudios de educación en idiomas, especialidad inglés, así como los especialistas de las gerencias y direcciones regionales de educación de las diferentes regiones de nuestro país. En esta oportunidad, el tema de hoy, miércoles 7 de septiembre, es Estrategias metodológicas innovadoras en educación básica, de acuerdo con el programa de estudios de educación en idiomas, especialidad inglés. El objetivo del tema es conocer estrategias metodológicas innovadoras aplicables a educación básica de acuerdo con el programa de estudios Educación en idiomas, especialidad inglés, con la participación de un experto en la materia y la experiencia de docentes formadores de la especialidad, en el marco de la segunda fase del proceso de implementación del Diseño Curricular Básico Nacional 2019-2020. Antes de presentar a nuestro expositor, doy informarles que hemos habilitado 3 enlaces en la página web de la DIFOI. El primero nos va a permitir registrar la asistencia, el segundo, formular las preguntas a nuestro expositor, y el tercero es una encuesta de satisfacción sobre el tema que nos convoca esta tarde. La importancia de responder a estos enlaces radica en que nos permitirá tener el sustento para continuar con estas videoconferencias a cargo de destacados y reconocidos profesionales vinculados a la formación inicial docente. Dicho esto, debo presentar ahora a nuestro ponente, a quien le damos las gracias nos acompañe esta tarde. Contamos con la grata presencia de William Machaca Samayoa. Nuestro invitado es gerente de proyectos de educación en el British Council Perú. William ha desarrollado estrategias para promover la mejora de las conexiones institucionales y la colaboración entre los sistemas de educación superior en Perú y el Reino Unido, a través de proyectos relacionados con esquemas de internacionalización, convocando a actores gubernamentales, universidades y otros actores claves. William Machaca es licenciado en Educación, especialidad Inglés, a través de la Universidad Nacional Federico Villarreal y próximo a egresar de la Maestría en Evaluación y Acreditación de la Calidad Educativa en la Universidad Nacional Enrique Guzmán y Valle. Nuestro expositor es docente formador y administrador de programas de enseñanza del idioma inglés, con más de 30 años de experiencia en educación, gestión curricular y desarrollo de capacidades en los sectores público y privado. También ha sido especialista en la Dirección de Formación Inicial Docente del Ministerio de Educación. Asimismo, nuestro ponente cuenta con experiencia en formación docente en servicio y programas de certificación docente en la Universidad de Lima y la Universidad Científica del Sur, sobre la base de los temas abordados en diferentes ponencias desarrolladas como parte de nuestro ciclo de videoconferencias. Su presentación explorará la pertinencia de algunas propuestas del alineamiento constructivo y de la necesidad de fortalecimiento de nuestras competencias evaluativas para la implementación efectiva de estrategias metodológicas que permitan el desarrollo del currículo nacional de educación básica en el marco de los programas de estudios de la formación inicial docente. Con esta presentación invitamos a nuestro invitado, William Machaca Samayoa, para que nos comparta para que comparta con nosotros su presentación. Muy buenas tardes, adelante, un gusto saludarlo. Adelante.
Muchas gracias, Víctor, y a través tuyo a la Dirección de Formación Inicial Docente, un saludo del British Council, una organización que representa al Reino Unido en todo lo que concierne al desarrollo de lazos para generar oportunidades educativas y relaciones culturales. En primer lugar, quiero mencionar que para mí es un gran honor el poder estar compartiendo con ustedes este espacio y tiene rasgos de toque bastante personal, ya que como mencionó Víctor, tuve el gusto de haber trabajado en la DIFOI por 2 años antes de integrarme al British Council. Así que esta es un grato reencuentro, seguramente con muchos docentes formadores con los cuales hemos recorrido un camino en ese desarrollo de la formación inicial docente ya hace algunos años. No creo que hayan ya estudiantes que hayan podido de repente presenciar mi visita a algunas de las instituciones de formación inicial docente, pero es un gusto igual el poder estar con ustedes a través de este espacio. ¿Ok? Y como esta es una presentación dedicada a los docentes formadores, a los especialistas y a los estudiantes en formación en la especialidad de inglés, entonces procederemos a cambiar de idioma y vamos a empezar a hacerlo en inglés a partir de este momento. Muy bien, permítanme compartir mi pantalla. So once again, thank you for this great opportunity. I'm truly pleased to be here. And thanks, Victor, for the introduction. I know you have summarized what the presentation will be like. It is mainly about teaching strategies that might or might not be innovative, but they hopefully mean some relevance for you in order to think about the ultimate goal of initial teacher training, which is providing basic education schools with the best human capital in English language teaching. Okay, so now let's get started with the presentation. And something really important to mention is that this presentation is not the first one. As Victor mentioned, this is apparently the last one of a series. So it is key to put some pieces together. I know that you have visited different topics, different key concepts on initial teacher training and how it connects with basic education. And I have heard and I have seen the contents that you have been discussing over the past presentations, and I would like to address certain important topics that you discussed about. In the first place, I would just present some snapshots of those presentations, which I think were key and very relevant in this journey of enhancing English language teaching in our country. So these are the different sessions that you held, and definitely they make a whole to feed into this strengthening, this enhancement of English language teaching. So congratulations to all of you who have consistently participated in these events, because this is definitely a good platform to make sure that we are doing the right thing in the classroom and as part of the whole education system in English language teaching. Well, and how to put these pieces together. It is important to mention that there are certain tools that I know that most of you already use in classes. Today, I'm going to invite you to participate, sharing some of those key concepts that you could discuss over the past events, some key ideas that you discussed in previous sessions. And this is where you need to collaborate in this session. I would highly appreciate if you could do the following. Using one or two words, summarize some key concepts that you explored in the webinars or the video conferences that you had before. All right? And how are you going to participate? What you can do first is to use this QR code that you can see there. You can capture it with your smartphones, with your cell phones, if you're using one. If you're using a desktop or a laptop, you can also type www.menti.com, and there you will be requested for a voting code. So please type 16260538. All right? So as we wait, I will be reminding you of this activity. Please use one or two words to mention some key highlights or takeaways that you obtained through the past seminars or webinars that you had as part of this series for the implementation of the core curriculum in initial teacher training. So please enter using the code, the QR code, or you may also type www.menti.com and the voting code is there. So let's wait a little bit. I cannot see any answer yet. Take some time. So once again, key topics, key ideas that you could retrieve from the sessions that you had previous to this one. No response yet? There we go. I can see 2 answers already appearing. Wonderful. We'll wait a couple of minutes, so answers will be coming in. There you go. And the list is growing. All right. Great, wonderful. It has to do with the strategies, innovation, collaboration, localized learning, active communication, tutorships. Keep inputting those ideas. Fabulous. Accuracy. Yeah, that's an expression that means positivism. Fantastic. Fantastic. Experiences, levels, context, again, situated learning, localization of learning, contextualization of learning. Those are key ideas that apparently stay in our minds, which is great. Online teaching, that's another factor that was analyzed. And though there are some interesting issues that we can see and discuss about online teaching and online learning. Wonderful. And I can see more answers coming in. Lovely. Such a great word. And that is teaching about. No, it has to be a pleasant activity. And definitely that word comes from a passionate teacher or a passionate student teacher. You can do it. Yes. Determination to achieve the best. Fantastic. Later on, when we share the slide deck with you, I will make sure that this word cloud is shared with you too, all right? But this is all great. This is all positive. Anytime that I came across a group of teacher trainers from teaching schools in Peru and also students, I guess something that is particularly outstanding is that positive experience, that positive spirit that you have towards teaching. Fantastic. Thank you very much. Now we will go back to our presentation. All right. Fabulous. There we go. As you just did, and you got some key ideas that stayed with you after the different presentations in this series, in this strategy that DFOID is implementing. I also checked the PowerPoint slides that were shared in those sessions, and I wanted to take some, and I wanted to retrieve some key ideas that were presented along those sessions. And one that came that got my attention, and I thought that would be relevant for this presentation, is this topic. When you discussed about the trends, the challenges, the approaches, and the achievements in initial teacher training. Let's start by the trends that you identified and that you discussed with a trainer. A trend definitely that we cannot deny its importance is the use of digital tools or resources to generate learning and to learn through different models like e-learning, b-learning, hybrid learning. So those are the trends now, which definitely are meant to stay. We know that the disruptive environment that the pandemic created in a way triggered a more active use of these tools that existed long before the sanitary emergency. But now we see that the trend mainly relies on that. And that is something that should become our ally. No, that should be our friend, not our foe. So it is important that in these efforts to improve our implementation of the DCBN, we see the use of digital tools, resources, online models as a friend and something to stay for good, no? Then about the approaches that initial teacher training or formación inicial docente aim at. We have quest for excellence, the orientation towards common good, environmental approach, gender equality, inclusive approaches, intercultural approaches, which are definitely approaches that we should find out best ways to streamline its implementation. Sometimes these approaches, even though we say that they are cross-curricular, that those are cross-cutting approaches, sometimes we lose sight of them. The idea is that when we plan, implement, and assess curriculum, we should always keep a close look at them and embed them in those different teaching moments, no? Now, what are the challenges that were discussed in the sessions before? There are two key challenges here, no? That apparently was a consensus in the presentations. One is strengthening digital skills. After 2 years of the pandemic, that is something that has happened, no? Undeniably, that was probably the only means to communicate, to connect, to generate knowledge in our system, not only in initial teacher training, but also in our basic education system. But that still is a challenge. And with a strengthening digital skills, it is not just the technical skills to use digital tools or resources. It also has to do with an approach to teaching, making the best use of these digital tools. No? Then the approach, the methodology needs students who are more responsible for their own learning management, and teachers that also change their mentality around the role that they have. No? Better than ever before, nowadays, we know that teachers' main role is that of a mentor, not a facilitator anymore, not only a facilitator, but mostly a mentor that makes the bridge between knowledge and learning, no? So that is the idea. So that will always be seen as a challenge. We need to strengthen our digital skills, but not only the technical use of it, but how these digital skills make it possible to generate learning. No, it is not just focusing on how to use an app, how to create an activity online, but how the impact of those digital tools and resources will have in students' learning, right? Okay, another idea that you visited was the need to update and upgrade resources and materials for the English language teacher teaching specialism. Now, together with the digital tools and the online environments, I would say that that is a challenge that can easily be overcome because availability to these resources and materials in the web is enormous. So it just takes maybe a little bit of curiosity and a systemic approach to collect, to curate, and to select the best resources or materials for English language teaching that are available abundantly in online sources. And that's what I can tell you about regarding my organization. In the last slides, I will point out to certain sources, online sources, where you can benefit from enormously. All right? Now, achievements. What are those winning points that we have had from initial teacher training? And according to what you discussed before, these are the main achievements so far. The attention to diversity, expanding English language teaching towards early year education and also primary education. That is key. And that also puts more demands on our system, on initial teacher training. No, that is a demand pressure that we should be ready to cope with. Yesterday, Janet, the person who kindly contacted me for this presentation, and myself and the team that will participate today, were discussing the likelihood of expanding English language teaching in basic education to early years as well as to primary school. And as I said yesterday, definitely that should be a great next step in this strengthening of language teaching in our schools, because that happens to be an age for students to more easily acquire a second language. No, we all know about sensitive periods in our lives, and definitely those ages when students are in kindergarten and primary school are the best years for them to acquire a second language without any accent. No, then another winning point from initial teacher training that was discussed is that now there is a better balance between the focus on pedagogy as well as language competence. That is important. No, we can not only feel proud of being the best in terms of pedagogy, we need to make enormous efforts to keep our levels of English enhancing every day. That is key. This is, I would say, a very important progress made in our system in initial teacher training, as well as in basic education. The way in which we are now referencing our standards, our progress levels, based on the standards from the Common European Framework. That is key because a few years back, when we spoke about English proficiency levels, we came up with words that were so vague. No, we said when we asked someone, "What is your English like?" You would say it's basic, intermediate, advanced. Those were the references. And those words do not say much, no? What basic means for someone could mean something totally different for another person. So those are too vague, too ambiguous. So the very fact that initial teacher training is now using the CEFR standards is key, is essential for progression, and it's essential to achieve and to measure achievement. Undeniably true that the implementation of integrative projects is key to this. Based on a competency-based approach, that is key, no? The implementation of integrative projects, I think, would definitely make reality what we conceptualize as a competency-based approach. Okay, another key aspect here, another presentation that you were part of, analyzed some challenges that exist for initial teacher training in the 21st century improve. And one of them is that for students who graduate from initial teacher training, you will not only have the mission to educate students from secondary school, connected with the previous slide. Now, the need also lies on the fact that you will be caring for early school and teenagers. That definitely demands a whole, not a new set of skills, but a more careful look into how we are developing our teacher profile to best cater for students that are mainly boys, girls, and adolescents. Remember that the ultimate goal of initial teacher training, the public initial teacher training improve, is to feed, to input with teaching professionals in the public schools in our school system. Then another challenge is, again, finding this balance, on the factors or improving the learning or the knowledge that we have on learning theories, not only general learning theories, teaching and learning theories that make our teaching framework, but also the specific factors that influence English language teaching and also learning, no? Because learning in general may follow certain beliefs, may follow certain principles, but English language teaching also has a specific, specialized set of factors that need to be considered, no? Social linguistics, psycholinguistics, second language acquisition. Those are aspects that need to be seen carefully and embedded in teacher training curriculum in a smart way. Another challenge that was seen was the need to attain the CEFR B2 level. That's the ideal, and that was expressed by different speakers in previous sessions. So the graduate profile from our teaching schools should be, in terms of language competence, should aim at a B2 level. No, I don't know up to this moment how we are going in that process of enhancing communicative competence development. But the idea, and apparently that's a consensus, is that all students who graduate from initial teacher training should be able to meet with those criteria that corresponds to a B2 level under the European framework. All right, now let's move to another interesting takeaway from previous sessions. Fostering a climate of respect in the classroom, including knowledge and resources relevant to context. And that is something that you mentioned in this word cloud that we collaboratively created, no? And I think I found a recurrence of this word, that the resources and the knowledge and learning experience that we promote in schools should be connected with the context, should be localized. And that makes the learning experience meaningful, truly meaningful. And on that, I would like to stop a little bit to speak of a personal experience. When I was visiting one of the teaching schools in Peru, I also shared a visit to a HEC school that I remember back then used a special program and a special platform. And I remember visiting one of these HEC school classroom experience, and I could see that in a unit where they were discussing housing in a very small town in the highlands, they were speaking about renting apartments. No, they were speaking about a balcony on a 20 floor apartment, which does not correspond to the reality, to the context. So that was meant to be something that didn't ring a bell to the students who were actually confronted with that learning resource. No, so that is important. And you are right. When in the word cloud you mentioned that, it has to obey to the context. It has to be based on the context. No? So, and that is the magic that teachers have to think about doing when they enter a class. Contextualizing is key. They say that in order to be successful in implementing a curriculum, you need to be a good context reader. You know, so that's the very first need. We need to read the context in order to propose and develop the best teaching and learning strategies. And there's another aspect that you visited was, again, the use of digital tools and resources. But in this case, I wanted to make a particular point, because what you mentioned is not what you mentioned, but during the discussions, it was said that it is important to manage digital tools and resources to complement classroom learning. Remember that after the pandemic or during the pandemic, the digital tools and resources became a way to promote learning, not only to complement learning. Actually, that was the core environment to generate learning. So why to limit digital tools and resources to complement? The idea would be to have face-to-face virtual education, to speak together with the same purpose, not one that complements the other, but they could alternate in the role of promoting learning as well as complementing them. No? So I think that is a key point to mention. Another presentation, which I thought was very important, and I had some takeaways for you all as teacher trainers and also student teachers, is on how to innovate teaching and learning processes in English language teaching. And here are some interesting points that I would like to see with you. I guess we are revisiting certain aspects that we mentioned before that you also summarized in that nice word cloud that I will be sharing with you. The very first one is students are prepared and motivated to learn 21st century skills, being creative, being critical, inquirers, bold, innovative, communicators, to be good team players. So that is essential. No, it is not just teaching English, but through it or based on it to support the development of a whole human being, to help the student profile as a citizen of the 21st century. No, that definitely needs to have all these core skills. No, so these core skills should be present in our plan, in our implementation, and in our assessment strategies when we train teachers, when we train students to be teachers, and also when we train students who are in the basic education. A teacher in this 21st century needs to be knowledgeable of how education systems work and consider himself and believe himself that he, as a teacher, from the position of a teacher, he is a manager. No, he is a manager. He handles a strategy. He is responsible for a whole process. So we should have that systemic look as part of our role. No, what is the purpose of my presence in the classroom? What are the processes that I will be generating through it? And how those processes are meaning outcomes or results. So we should see our actions as teachers, as managers, that generate knowledge, and also to see ourselves as part of a larger system, which is the classroom, as well as the school and the whole country system. No, so that is another way to innovate initial teacher training and the way we act in class. We have to see ourselves as managers. It's not that we are. I remember long ago, like 25 years ago, I was approached by another colleague that saw my teaching practice in a language institute, and in bold Spanish he said, "But you English teachers, you follow a textbook that gives you the scripts, that tells you what objective to write on the board, that provides with the activities. So you're not a teacher. You don't manage anything." And that hurt me. He closed his remarks saying that this in Spanish. He said, "Tú eres un enseñadorcito." So that started a whole a whole debate, and obviously, I would say a very thoughtful response from my part. But in a way, when we do not have a clear view of our role as a system manager, we might lose sight of other aspects rather than delivering curriculum. We do not only deliver curriculum, we do not only instruct, but we educate. And in order to educate, we need to play our role as planners, as implementers, and as assessors, and also people, professionals who monitor and evaluate the whole process. No? Another innovative teaching process that is required in English language teaching is that we should promote with a setting that is inclusive, safe for students, that would prevent violence from taking place, as well as to making sure that we do not leave any student out of the system. We do not leave any student behind. No? And that goes in line to the need to have this approach to equality, diversity, and inclusion. Definitely, this is a need, not only in the English language classroom, not only in the school system, but in the whole community, and also the global community when we speak of the whole world. No, so that is to innovate. That is an innovation that requires quick attention. Now, again, something that we mentioned before, teachers nowadays need to adopt the role of mediators. I would say that rather than facilitators, I would say mediators. The object of study or knowledge is mediated by the teacher. Motivating learning that goes beyond school, no? And again, relying on the use of technical digital tools that we have available now more than ever before. Okay, so those are key ideas that you visited, and I wanted to revisit with you because when I was given the topic, when I was kindly invited for this presentation, and I came across the title which said methodological strategies that are innovative. I said everything that was spoken before, in a way, have a touch of that. No, remember that we are still in the transition between the traditional teaching approach to a more competency-based approach, that requires all these elements. So I said, if we're going to speak about methodological strategies, we need to revisit these aspects that were already covered. Okay, another topic that you addressed during those conversations, and one that you specifically had with Educación Básica, with my friends Karen and Fernando, you analyzed these aspects, no? And I wanted to put together these two graphics here with the idea of finding the connection between what is expected from basic education and what we can offer from the initial teacher training. No, on the left-hand side of your screen, you will see what is required by schools. What the school teachers need to have is mastery in the use of methodologies, to be aware of trends that are related to the effective implementation of these methodologies. When you step into the school system, the basic education system, you need to be clear on the competency-based approach in these cross-cutting approaches that need to be implemented, as well as to base our intervention considering the graduate profile. No? So that is what the basic education requires. Initial teacher trainers, when you graduate from teaching schools, you should be well aware and you should master these different aspects. Methodology, to be able to implement the competency-based approach, to be able to streamline, to embed these cross-curriculum or cross-cutting approaches, and also to start by having a clear look at the graduate profile. Also, 3 more specialized demands from basic education are made up by managing or knowing about the different levels of standards. When students graduate from escuelas pedagógicas or institutos de educación pedagógica, should be not only aware, but should know about the European framework, the SEFR standards. And something very important, should have assessment literacy, should be knowledgeable of what evaluation is, because all those elements will mean experiencing the teaching life in basic education in the best manner possible. No? So that is what the school demands. Now, what do we have as initial teacher training schools? We have a very aligned and very good model that has divided the different dimensions into 4. And those are the ones who are designed to respond to the demands of basic education. That is key to mention here. Initial teacher training with basic education are no longer divorced. There is alignment that should make your transition from teaching schools to your working experience in basic schools to make this transition smooth and effective. But you need to consider certain aspects there. So it is moment to find some match, no? To make some matching between what basic education needs and what we as initial teacher training can offer under the framework of our model, no? So once again, we have the methodologies and related trends. Again, in a school, what they need is competency-based approach, cross-cutting approaches, graduate profile, standards and levels, self-reference standards, and assessment. Now, what do we offer from initial teacher training schools? We have this graduate profile with 4 different dimensions. What we will focus on now is dimensions 1 and 2. Dimension 1, which is about readiness for student learning or planning for student learning, as well as teaching for student learning, no? So those 2 dimensions are key to meet with those demands from basic education. Now, how are we going to do that? Let's see. Okay. From the 15 different capacities or skills that make the 2 dimensions, I picked 8 of them that would help us align with basic education, okay? Now, in dimension 1, which in a few words is the ability to design relevant learning experiences for basic education students, this ability, this whole skill set to design relevant learning experience, is supported by 3 different concepts. We should use planning in different ways. Again, the need to contextualize, the need to attend the differences, the need to cater with the different students that we receive and their different levels and realities, demands that we apply different planning alternatives, no? Now, the use of technological and scientific advances, once again, digital tools, active learning in digital environments, and also considering the sociocultural and linguistic diversity. Now, among those skills or capacidades that I selected from dimension 1, I could see that 3 of them are relevant to those demands from basic education. The very first one is establishing learning purposes and assessment criteria that are aligned, no? So aims, assessment criteria, and alignment. Those are 3 terms that we should keep in mind when thinking about strategies. Second, capacidad says design annual plans, units, projects, modules, and sessions in an articulated way. No? So once again, dimension 1 focuses on the need to form a graduate teacher, no? A graduate student who manages the way to design all these planning tools in an articulated way. Then a third capacidad or skill is to propose learning and assessment situations, strategies, and resources that are consistent with learning purposes. Later on, you will see how nicely these capacidades connect with what basic education requires, all right? Now, in terms of dimension 2, which is teaching for student learning, we would say basically that this dimension corresponds to the concept that teachers as strategic mediators, promote situations, learning experiences, mobilize these cognitive and social affective structures, capacities of students to respond in the best manner to the social-cultural setting where they live. No? So that is what our DCBN says. No? That is the main concept. And again, that should be supported by three factors. That we develop learning experiences based on the development of competencies. We should create positive and socio-emotional atmosphere in order to generate learning that is meaningful, that is profound, deep, and that is long-lasting. Okay? Apologies for the pet, tends to be a bit noisy. And the third factor to consider in order to teach for student learning is that we should apply an evaluation or assessment approach that is mainly formative and that is based on learning needs. Not putting away or separating what we know as summative assessment, but creating a proper balance between summative and formative. Once again, making assessment our friend and not seeing assessment as the foe or the enemy. No? Something that was traditionally referred to as something negative. I mean, for me, who comes from the last millennium, definitely assessment or evaluation was probably one of the most traumatic experiences. But no, today, the concept of assessment and evaluation is different. And that is what you as trainers and as teachers, student teachers need to keep in mind, that assessment nowadays plays a more meaningful role, and that should be placed in a better moment in that strategic path to develop language learning. No? So let's see that evaluation makes like one of the core elements of dimension 2, teaching for student learning. And the capacidades that I selected, or the skills that I highlighted, are these 5 here. We can see that managing pedagogical interactions in order to facilitate the construction of learning is one. Encouraging students to understand the meaning of activities, that is essential. No? In the past, with the old systems, when I was a student and also when I started teaching, activities were probably not the result of other elements, but the activities were central to English language teaching. I remember every time I came out of class, I would feel very proud of the activities that I implemented with my students. And we all teachers took pride of saying, hey, my class today was fantastic, because all the students liked the activities and they all participated in the activities. But that was the analysis. That was our sense of achievement based on student satisfaction. But we didn't pay we didn't pay attention to other aspects. We never said, oh, the activities were fantastic today. At the end of class, everyone was ready to describe indefinite past experiences. No, that was not important. What was important was that students were happy with the activities, that they were dynamic, etc. But then students probably didn't understand the meaning of those activities. Now, under our proposal and the need of the system is that students understand the meaning of activities. No, they should. So there is a sense of purpose in what they do. If you give a student a song to sing, he should also know that he's singing a song with a purpose. Is that to improve his pronunciation? Is that probably to improve his the production of certain articulations or sounds? So there needs to be a sense of purpose within students when they engage in an activity. No? Then something that is essential is also to optimize the use of time. With time being so little in our school system in basic education, we need to keep that in mind to make the best use of time. Assessment comes as a key point I mentioned. No, the assessment strategies need to be present when we speak about strategies to perform in the best way possible. No, and something related to assessment or evaluation is how to interpret that evidence using the criteria that is also aligned with it. So once again, we know that evaluation has three moments. No, evaluation first consists of collecting information, interpreting information, which is evidence, no, to make decisions. No, if we see evaluation from the perspective that is formative, when you enter the school system, you should be able to have that in mind. That when you evaluate students, you should be properly trained or able to interpret the results so you can make the best decisions to enhance learning or to repair if there wasn't any learning. No? So that is the idea. So these are highlights that I could get from the DCBN or the DCBN. And I consider that these capacidades definitely make perfect inputs. No? They will feed any strategy to implement best teaching experiences in the basic education. Of course, the other skills, the other capacities that appear, which add up to 15, they are all important. But for this presentation, I wanted to focus only on these ones because they are connected with what you will see later on, all right? Now, but what we just saw, which are skills or capacidades, are a list of attributes, no? It is not a list to check and you say, okay, you will graduate from initial teacher training, you establish learning purposes, you design annual plans, you propose learning and assessment situations. We cannot see them in an isolated manner. No? Otherwise, we cannot separate. And the competence and the concept of competence goes against that. No? It is not adding capacities. It is not making a list of capacities, but it is knowing how to combine, how to mobilize those different capacities in order to respond to challenges, in order to meet with interests, in order to solve problems. So when the model of initial teacher training has this list of skills or capacities, that is a good start. But that's not all. We have to think of ways on how to make this list a strategy, how to combine this, how to mobilize this, and make us good English language teacher trainers or good English language teacher teachers in the basic education, no? So the model provides with these capacities, but now we need to see how we can generate this synergy among these different skills in order to do what is expected from us to do in the basic education. Okay, now we're speaking about teaching strategies. And just for the sake of clarification, let me read these two concepts around teaching strategies. Teaching strategies, also known as instructional strategies, are methods that teachers use to deliver course material in ways that keep students engaged and deliver course material in and practice in different skill sets, right? Apologies, there's some light blinding me. Okay, second, Lawton defined teaching strategy is a generalized plan for a lesson or for a set of lessons, which could be a unit or could be short-term planning, which include a structure desired, learner behavior in terms of goals of instructions, and an outline of planned tactics to implement this strategy. No? Okay. So once again, in the previous slide, we saw a list of skills, a list of capacidades. But having a list of capacidades is not enough. We need to make those capacidades a strategy or be embedded in a teaching strategy. So we need to integrate those skills with different levels at different stages. So let's have a look here. Once again, going back, we should integrate planning skills, implementation skills, and assessment skills. Now, so that is the idea. How do we move from the what? The what is the list of skills or the capacidades. Now, how? We said integrating, no? We said integrating skills. Now let's go deeper in that. Okay, now you will help me, all right? As well as you participated in such a nice manner on the previous part, I will also ask for your kind collaboration in writing your answer to this question. If you have a look at this picture and you think of a strategy, what do you think this means? You can write a phrase, no? You can write a phrase in the activity that I will share with you. Once again, you can use the QR code here, or you might as well use that. Or if you haven't closed the previous one, the previous connection, you can continue with it, right? So we can continue using that. I will activate this. So if you look at this picture, once again, what do you see? What do you think it means? The sky is the limit? Maybe that is it, and you're right. For me, no, you don't have any introduction. You just say, the sky is the limit. All right? So write a phrase that best explains the meaning of this photo. And hold on, I will activate it. Just give me a second. Give me a second, please. Bear with my technical skills. I'm not very... Okay. There we go. I will present it now, so for sure you will be able to access the activity. Okay? Okay. Please, Janet or Roxana, confirm to me if you can see it displayed.
That's okay. That's okay.
Perfect. Wonderful. Okay, there we go. First came already. I can do it. A great problem. Fabulous. Keep going, come on. Keep feeding it with your ideas. That can't be true. I can not only have two answers. Come on. What does this picture mean to you?
We have to wait 2 minutes because we are más adelantados que los otros.
Oh, so
At the
there's
time.
this delay.
Yeah. Yes,
Oh,
it's delayed.
oh,
It's
okay,
delayed.
all right. Apologies. Now I understand. I missed that somewhere. Great, we already have 3 answers. I wish we could interact in real time with the audience so to get their voice on this, but it's interesting to see. And sometimes all the answers make total sense. And they are probably better than the one that I prepared or the one that I planned. The limit is in your mind. You need to be creative. A great problem. Confusion at first. Oh my goodness. That is the formación inicial docente spirit. Lovely. Best education system in the country. Not only in the country, in the world. If it's not the world, the whole galaxy. You should all feel proud of you as a system. Confusion. There we go. We already have 9 responses and keeps growing. Nothing is impossible. You just need to give it a try. Fabulous. Great challenge. Creative thinking. This is a great challenge. Great challenges make great victories, huh? All right. All right, all right, fabulous. Let's just scroll down. Uh-oh. It's only 12? No, we have more. This is longer than a phrase, but fabulous. Okay, it is a way which we can create a cognitive conflict over something. Our students can think and think over about possible answers. Great. A lot of ways to take. All right. That everything is possible. We only need to see the correct way to succeed. Creativity to solve problems. There are many ways to solve a problem. Great. I'm with you on that. Which one could be right for my students? Okay. You got me. I mean, I think the phrase that I use is the least imaginative and creative. Fabulous. Thank you again. Thank you very much. Let me see. I can do it. Okay, let me see if I can do it better than you. Okay? I don't think so. All right, we'll return to, and again, we'll be sharing with you these results. Okay, so if you want to keep writing, please do, because I will be sharing with Janet, so she can be kind to share with you. So we will share the results of this. Okay, let's move on. Time is a killer. All right, so what does it mean? This is what I prepared. It's not better than yours. Share with you this result. Can you see it? Writing, please do, because I will be sharing. I can hear an echo. Something's going on. Somewhere. Okay. Apparently it's gone now. Okay, so that was the phrase that came together with this picture. It's not as nice as the ones that you proposed. I can see some other ideas coming in. Another says the road ahead. look for the best strategy, a challenge, creativity to solve problems. You can reach the goal from a good approach, right? No matter which road we take, we can reach our goal. Fabulous. I think we can close this session now because you have said it all. But I know we have to comply with timing, so I will keep speaking. All right. So begin with the end in mind is the idea behind this picture. And why? Because this is part of the strategy of actually two approaches that I wanted to superficially share with you today, because that would take ages to discuss, to explore, to benefit from it. But I'm sure you will be accessing that in the web and do some self study of that. All right. Remember we saw that the basic education requires from English language teachers that are knowledgeable of basic education graduate profile or exit profile, that they should be very well informed on the standards and levels. They should also be very well informed on SAFER standards, no? And also on assessment practices. What do they have to do with beginning with the end in mind? Well, we should keep in mind that standards, the profile, using the SAFER standards, using correct assessment practices, we will be able to judge if learning is currently taking place or that if the goal has been achieved, no? Now, so once again, what is the end in mind? When we speak about English language teaching or any other subject matter teaching in schools, when we speak about the end in mind is having clear information on the intended learning outcomes or the results or the expected learning, no? But that is not enough. It's not enough to know that at the end of this unit, my student will be able to summarize a text. Is that all? Will that make me a successful teacher? Not necessarily. Not after 30 years of experience in the classroom. You do not become you do not become a genius to be able to enter a class or start a unit only with the end in mind. There is a lot more. What is next? And now this is where we start thinking about the strategies, no? And just doing some research, I came across two interesting approaches that can help you on thinking about the best strategy. One of them is constructive alignment. Constructive alignment is a proposal that was developed by John Biggs back in 2014. So it's not that innovative, okay? But it is something that goes with what we need. And what does constructive alignment say? Basically, it structures key elements for effective teaching and learning to take place. And not only English, but any other subject matter. All right. It says that any strategy should include a careful outlining of three elements. We said the end in mind. The end in mind is the learning outcomes or the results, the expected results. Call it capacidades, call it competencies, all right? Then another key element to define our strategy is assessment. And it's interesting to see assessment here. Traditionally, it was not part of the construction. Nowadays, assessment is key in the process of generating or helping students construct knowledge. And the third one is teaching and learning activities. So when we think of a strategy, we cannot lose sight of these three key elements, no? Learning outcomes, assessment, teaching and learning activities. We already started with the end in mind, but that is not enough. Now, according to this graphic, probably you might see that they all inform each other, but still we do not have any idea rather than the need that constructive alignment happens when the listening outcomes are also reflected in the assessment and in the teaching and learning activities. That is what we see here, no? And they feed each other, and they are inputs for each other. In this case, we do not have any connection based on sequence. Still, this is very wide. Could be vague for some others. So I said, I guess with constructive alignment, we do not have enough. So let's move and think about another way to structure or to outline what we need to create a strategy. And this is something that speaks perfectly to what we are discussing today, backward curriculum design. No? And backward curriculum design is not a new term or a new concept. When we spoke of curriculum design in different stages, we had forward curriculum design, mid curriculum design, and backward curriculum design. In the past, we had the forward curriculum design, which started with the goals or learning outcomes. Then the activities and assessment came at the very end. No? But what does backward curriculum design propose? A different approach to it. And this is something that we have been doing for years in the basic education system, and that I bet that you're already doing, but this conversation is just to revisit certain concepts. So what we do now is first start with the end in mind. We think of the learning outcomes. What happens after the learning outcomes? Do I decide, okay, my students will be able to write the summary of a written text? Okay, so I will start with activity. Activity 1, warm up. Students will do this, and that. Second, students will elicit important ideas. No, that is not the best way according to backward curriculum design. Based on this frame, what we should do right after identifying the intended learning outcome, we should think of the assessment experience or the assessment experience, the criteria that we will be assessing, the evaluation technique that we will be using, the evaluation tool that we will be using. So in this sequence that backward curriculum design proposes, after the learning outcome is stated, we should think on how we are going to verify or what will evidence that, what will be used as an evidence that the outcome is being achieved. And then only then we think of the learning activities. So only after we have defined the intended learning outcome, when we have thought of the assessment, only then we generate the different learning and teaching activities, so that these teaching and learning activities speak to the intended learning outcomes. So they facilitate or promote achieving the goals that we have stated. No? And it makes sense. We cannot, after the objective that we state, we cannot jump to the activities. We need to think, how am I going to know that my students are achieving the goal or making progress? So that is the idea. Learning outcomes, assessment, learning activities. Obviously, based on the learning activities that you design, you will have to think about the resources that you will need. No? Very quick. What is constructive alignment? Yes.
Sorry, William, we only have 80 minutes left.
8 minutes left. Plenty of time. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
What is constructive alignment? Very easily. Constructive alignment is a teaching principle that combines constructivism, which means that students themselves generate knowledge through the activities that we propose, and it is also a curriculum construction approach that emphasizes the importance of defining the intended learning outcomes at the very beginning. Okay? Now, we have already seen that. Backward curriculum design, I have already explained to you. What is it? Identifying desired results right at the front, at the beginning. That is where we think of the big ideas and the skills and the competencies that we need to develop. After that, we will determine acceptable evidence. No? What assessment tasks will students perform? And third, based on those two pieces of information, you will plan relevant, aligned activities, learning activities, no? Those learning events. Okay, and the importance of this, when we started the conversation, we said, we will find ways to make our feed curriculum speak to the demands of basic education. And this is a perfect example of what we are saying now. No, as you can see in the cartilla de planificación curricular from the Ministry of Education to implement the new curriculum back in 2017, they created as one of the foundations for the implementation of basic education curriculum is these processes of planning and implementation, which follow the same logic of backward curriculum design. First, you can see it is ¿qué aprendizajes deben lograr los estudiantes? ¿No? Propósitos de aprendizaje. ¿Qué evidencia voy a? So that's the second step. On the third one, which is the best way in which I will promote the learning of those outcomes. Again, that is the structure. Here you can see a very quick example of it. If we want to address the competencies 14 and 15 in communication in English, we state the intended learning outcome. El estudiante lee y desarrolla un resumen. Then the activity of evaluation is here, and the teaching and learning activities are there. So there is alignment there. That is the idea behind constructive alignment and backward curriculum design. I don't want to spend more time here. Some last thoughts and concepts that are relevant to my organization that I would like to share with you. As you know, British Council is the international organization of the United Kingdom for the cultural relations and the education opportunities. And as so, one of our priorities is the development of English. Here, for English language teachers, or for you student teachers who are in part of this presentation or this event, I would like to invite you to register and participate in this wonderful platform where you will find lots of different pieces, or you will have access to lots of different resources in the shape of online events, podcasts, videos, tips and ideas, lots of different specialized activities to develop as English teachers. So that's for teachers. For you who are training to become teachers, this would be a great moment to start accessing these materials and participating in the events that we have. Now, for teacher trainers, for docentes formadores, this is a great page. This is something that we developed together with the BBC. and that is specific for teacher educators. The link is there. I am sure that this link will be shared with you. That is where you can find lots of resources. All right. I guess that was all. I hope I met with those minutes, those 8 minutes. Thank you very much. If you find the need to contact me, please do it through Janet or the specialists at DFOID, or just following or taking into account this email that I shared with you. Thank you very much. It has been a true pleasure to speak with you today and to participate in this presentation.
Agradecemos la participación de nuestro expositor, William Machaca Samayoa, quien nos acompaña esta tarde en la videoconferencia que ha reunido a directivos, docentes y estudiantes de las escuelas e institutos de educación superior pedagógica del programa de estudios de educación en idiomas, especialidad inglés. Debo recordarle a nuestra amable audiencia no olvidar registrar su asistencia, formular sus preguntas y consultas, ¿no? Y responder antes de finalizar el evento la encuesta de satisfacción. Estos 3 enlaces están ubicados en la página web de la IFOI por donde se está transmitiendo esta videoconferencia. Seguidamente vamos a iniciar ahora la ronda de comentarios y preguntas. Para ello nos acompañan 2 docentes de nuestras instituciones formadoras. Ellas son Arabella Brigitte Mena Alarcón, docente de la especialidad de idiomas de la Escuela de Educación Superior Pedagógica Arequipa, con maestría culminada en docencia universitaria y gestión de los entornos virtuales para el aprendizaje. 18 años formando futuros docentes con experiencia en los niveles de inicial, primaria y secundaria, bachillerato y capacitación a docentes de formación continua. Tenemos también la presencia de la docente Roxana Giovanni Briones Santamaría, coordinadora y docente de la especialidad de idiomas del Instituto de Educación Superior Pedagógica José Santos Chocano de Amazonas. Ella es licenciada en Educación de Idiomas, especialidad en inglés, francés y español, magíster en Psicología Educativa, 15 años de experiencia en el nivel superior y educación básica. A continuación, nuestras docentes van a iniciar la ronda de preguntas de esta videoconferencia dirigidas obviamente a nuestro expositor, el señor William Machaca Samayoa. Atención entonces, invitamos a nuestras docentes para que realicen la ronda de preguntas y los comentarios en esta videoconferencia. Adelante, Roxana Briones.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Urbina. Continue. Good afternoon to everyone. Continue with or according to the explanations. Let me to make a comment, okay, about the planning. Learning planning, okay, is one of the most important competencies because it makes teacher think as a creator or an innovator or a planner, right? About the learning experiences. Also, we as teachers, we can include in our plans, for example, strategies, materials, or resources, right? All of these for getting the learning purposes. Also, forget to the student success, right? Also, the planning, we note, it does not focus only on what the teacher knows, but on how we plan learning, our purposes, resources, also strategies, okay? We know these are based on the needs and possibilities of our students, okay? Also taking into account that our students come from different places, different contents. Since our country, our Peru, okay, has different regions. Okay, we have students from coast, jungle, and highland regions. And for that reason, they have different levels of performance and ways of learning, right? And therefore, a competence preparation for student learners develops a deep understanding of different knowledge that is necessary in the teaching task. For that reason, as teacher trainers, we have to encourage, motivate to our future teachers, okay, into, for example, into these pedagogic training aspects. Also, planning is important because help us to identify our goals clearly. It makes us decide clearly or concretely what we need to do to have the effect on society. That, for example, we want to get a learning outcomes in our students. Also, planning support us decide how best to use our resources because we work with people, times, money, because we spend with our materials too, okay, also with informations, equipments, okay, so that they make the most significant contributions to achieve our goals. To conclude this comment, that it's essential to understand the learning described in the current curriculum, because it's not only move our learnings throughout lives, but also provide opportunities for the integral educations of the student at the national level. Okay, the question to Mr. Machaca is, what's important is to include a sequence of activity or actions into a lesson plan.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the question, Roxana. Thank you for the reflections that you just shared with us. I think that the sequence, that the proper sequence is essential to achieving what we want to achieve, what we want students to achieve. Once we set the intended learning outcomes, and we have a clear idea on how we are going to judge if the learning outcome has been achieved or not. So once we have the end in mind, we will trace the road that will allow students to achieve what we expect them to achieve. And we will support their activities in a sequential, progressive manner. It's not like an example I gave you when we say, okay, now you're going to summarize a text. No, you cannot ask students right away to summarize a text. It is not making a text short. It follows a process, and you have to sequence that process. If you want a student to make a summary of a text, you will first help them to learn how to identify key ideas, main points. Second, you will help him learn how to paraphrase, how to express ideas in their own words. No? And then you will need to help them to put together those ideas in a coherent, cohesive manner, to organize those ideas that he has elicited and paraphrased. Then he will have to put those ideas together in a summary. So that takes a sequence. That sequencing of activities that will help students achieve the final outcome is called scaffolding, And scaffolding is like in construction, And again, related to construction, scaffolding is andamiaje, It symbolizes that very fact. The students are constructing, and the andamiaje helps them move from one to the higher floor of the construction. So that's a scaffolding. You will not send them straight up to the top of the building. You will have to help them move slowly, little by little, to achieve the expected outcome. That is, I think, the importance of sequencing the learning experiences in the best manner. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Machaca, for your answer.
Arabella, por favor.
Good afternoon, Mr. William. Good afternoon, everyone who are participating in this dialogue. Professor William, I appreciate that you consider our before presentation. I think it's very essential to make the diagnosis or characterization of the context to be able to plan long and short range. And this way, we meet the needs of basic education students and then continue with domain 2 that you mentioned too. Teaching for students learning, where our students execute what was planned, conducting the teaching process, creating a favorable climate, and permanently evaluating the learning that is guided. To achieve this domain that is aligned to the framework of good teaching performance, our Arequipa Pedagogical Higher Education School develops the 12 competencies to achieve the graduation profile through the courses and modules in which they are applied, and the achievement of this is evaluated to guarantee the insertion to the teaching career. And our students carry out the pedagogical practice in education institutions of basic education, where they develop the skills of the English area. You mentioned how important it is to align the purpose of learning to achieve learning. I have a question for you, Professor William. How could the alignment be shown? And I have another second question too. What recommendations could you give us to trying institution for future teachers?
Thank you very much. Well, how to evidence that there is alignment there? I would very simply say that the alignment is evidenced if the intended learning outcome is reflected in the activities that are developed in classroom and all the learning activities, and that it is reflected in an assessment task that corresponds to what was expected. So once again, I think that if the learning goal has to do with writing a text or writing a summary, but then the assessment is using a multiple choice answer, then there is no such correspondence between the intended learning outcome and the assessment task, then definitely there is no alignment there. So there needs to be correspondence, there needs to be cohesion, internal coherence among all those three elements. That is what we call internal coherence of curriculum. Intended learning outcomes, activities, and assessments should be aligned, and they should aim at having a look at the same. Now, what to recommend in teacher training, what to recommend in teacher
In higher
training
education.
in higher education. I would say this is something it's not the first time I use, but to develop as a marker of the institution, the development of 4 C's. First, competence. Second, confidence. Third, communication, and a sense of community. Those 4 elements should be present in whatever activity that the institution is engaged with. Now, those 5 C's. Make sure you are developing confidence that will enable people, students, teacher trainers, administrators, service support employees, all feel at home and feel confident on what they are doing. And also share this sense of community that will allow the institution to build this institutional identity that is essential to experience success in the school. And obviously, all that will only happen if communication among all the stakeholders, all internal stakeholders, is effective and constructive. I think, and I hope that answers your question.
Thank you so much.
Bueno, de esta manera queremos dar las gracias a nuestras docentes de las instituciones participantes. Al mismo tiempo, agradecer también a nuestro ponente por dar respuesta a las preguntas que han sido formuladas esta tarde. A continuación, vamos a darle pase a nuestro expositor para que pueda despedirse de nuestra amable audiencia y en especial de todos los estudiantes y docentes de las escuelas e institutos de educación superior pedagógica. Adelante, magíster, por favor.
Muchísimas gracias, Víctor. Primero, gracias a ti, gracias a Janet, al equipo de DIFOID que ha hecho posible la posibilidad de esta gran oportunidad para mí de reencontrarme con la formación inicial docente desde mi organización, la cual vengo ya elaborando más de 5 años ahora, pero cuyo tiempo transcurrido no ha afectado o impactado en ningún distanciamiento de la formación inicial docente. Así que este para mí ha sido un momento muy grato y muy satisfactorio, que espero no sea la última vez. Espero siempre mantener el contacto con ustedes y yo creo que esa es suficiente razón el poder haber estado o retomado contacto con ustedes para estar sumamente grato y desearles lo mejor en todo aspecto. A la DIFOID, a los colegas de la DIFOID, a los colegas de las instituciones de formación inicial docente, a sus directivos, a los estudiantes, todos ellos que son el soporte para la formación inicial docente en todas las áreas, y particularmente en inglés, que tiene ahora más que nunca, creo, una posición, además de expectante, bastante retadora para poder responder a las demandas del sistema educativo, que es básicamente la educación básica, ¿no? Así que muchas gracias nuevamente y hasta pronto.
Muchas gracias, magíster William, por estar esta tarde con nosotros. Agradecerle su exposición y las importantes reflexiones que nos han dejado también las docentes y que usted ha dado gentilmente respuesta a todos ellos. Finalmente, decirle a nuestra amable audiencia, agradecerle por haber estado con nosotros y no haber olvidado registrar su asistencia y responder la encuesta de satisfacción que hemos puesto en la página web de la DIFOID. Brindamos también un agradecimiento especial a todos nuestros especialistas de la DIFOID, en especial a aquellos de la especialidad de inglés, por la organización y participación en esta videoconferencia. Hemos llegado a la parte final del evento y agradecemos una vez más a quienes siempre se suman a este tipo de actividades. Un agradecimiento especial también a los docentes y estudiantes que se han contactado de diferentes regiones de nuestro país. Gracias por sus preguntas y por sus aportes que siempre contribuyen a este tipo de actividades. No olviden además que ustedes pueden volver a acceder a este webinar. El enlace está ubicado en la página web de la DIFOID, al igual que el material que gentilmente nos ha ofrecido nuestro expositor William Machado. Para finalizar, indicarles que nos estamos preparando para el segundo Encuentro Nacional Virtual Ventana Pedagógica, cuyo eje central será práctica e investigación y se realizará en el mes de noviembre del presente año. Esto con la participación de expertos invitados, docentes y estudiantes de los institutos y escuelas de educación superior pedagógica. Con esta información, me despido con todos ustedes. Tengan ustedes muy buenas tardes y espero verlos pronto. Hasta una próxima oportunidad. Permiso.